Let me just wait till it says online on the stream. Okay, so we're online on Facebook, so I'll start.
All right.
All right, so welcome to meeting 27 of Junto Club. So Junto Club is modeled after Benjamin Franklin's Junto Club, which began in 1727. And at that Junto Club, Ben and all his friends would talk about philosophy and science and politics and a bunch of other stuff that interested them in order to better understand themselves and the world around them. And we carry on that tradition as a means of improving upon ourselves and helping each other improve. So, yeah, we're Mike, Matt, and Shu, and we start every episode with a quote from Benjamin Franklin. So I'll let Shu take it away.
All right. So today's quote is, quote, "He that does what he should not shall feel what he would not," end quote.
Say that again.
Actually, never mind. I have the wrong quote, I think. So
Okay.
actually,
Second
let's
week
go.
in a row.
Yeah, actually, let's go with the one I just say. Actually,
Okay.
he that does what he should not shall feel what he would not, end quote.
You said will fear or feel?
Shall feel.
So he said, who said that he should not what?
He that does what he should not.
Okay,
right?
he does that what he should not. Okay.
Shall feel what he would not.
Should feel what he would not. So so I guess if a person is doing something they should not, so doing something bad presumably, then they should feel
Shall feel.
They should feel bad. I mean, is it that simple?
They should feel. They'll feel something. Maybe they'll feel the excitement and rush of breaking the law.
No, I suppose that's true. So if they were supposed to be dead inside, but they, by committing like serial criminal acts, they get that rush of adrenaline.
I was thinking about like petty crimes, like the grandma who like steals from a store for excitement.
Okay. I think this one is caution your like maybe your ethics and character, right? So if you're doing something that you should not, you will feel something that you would not otherwise, right? If you so the feeling of maybe shame or regret, you are not going to feel that feeling, right? But if you do something you should not, you are going to feel that feeling of like, I don't know, something like that. Anyway.
Yeah. No,
so,
I that's sort of what I was going for in the first interpretation, but I mean, I guess it could, yeah. I mean, I don't know. It could,
okay.
Like, if you lack morals, I guess it also works. Like as sort of as Matt was getting at, like, you know, you could get a rush out of it.
Or you could feel you might get punished and you're gonna feel the pain of that, right?
So, you know, the rush thing was kind of a joke. I knew, you know, I don't think that's how Ben was trying to interpret it, but I actually don't really agree. If what this is trying to say is you'll feel shame when you do something bad, and that's how you know it's bad. I don't really agree because there's lots of people in society who do bad things and feel no shame about it. So, I mean, for some people that would work, but I feel like it's clearly not a rule of thumb or something you could use heavily.
Okay, all right.
And
all right, anyway, let's go on. Go ahead.
I said people are shame prone, so they could do things they're supposed to do and still feel shame.
That's also true. Lots of people feel shame over stuff that's, you know, silly.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the quote that I actually the official quote that I prepared for today. I don't know why I messed it up, but anyway, the official quote is, quote, "Virtue and a trade are a child's best portion," end quote. What does that mean?
It means Benjamin Franklin was running out of good quotes.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Sorry.
No.
Yeah, I don't know. What does he mean? A child's best portion? That's weird.
Like, I mean, I guess like a child isn't corrupt, so virtue being a child's like best piece or something. I don't know what he means by a trade.
Trade maybe some kind of profession, right? The job.
So virtue, so being relatively innocent and uncorrupted, and like learning to do something that they can do in the future is like.
Maybe this is about what you're giving to the child, right? Like you give them
Yeah.
a portion of food. So he's saying like the best thing you can give to a child is your virtues, like ethical teaching and a trade, something they can do to support themselves, which I mean, that would make sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with Matt's view. I think that's what I mean by portion. It could be like, yeah, I was thinking maybe it could be portion means like maybe part of the child, and maybe like 90% of portion of the child or something. But I think I do like the interpretation of like just giving them food, right, as a portion, right? So yeah.
Okay, I'll
All
go
right.
with that.
All right, that's good. All right, let's go on to the mini topics that we usually talk about. To start with, I think I want to talk about thinking about thinking. So I think I don't know, one of the previous episode we mentioned that. So anyway, so thinking is something I want to improve on. So I'm constantly like reading and searching things that to improve my thinking. So I guess for to start, I want to ask you guys like, what are you thinking? What do you guys think about? Why are you thinking about thinking? The new segment.
I think that was one too many deep for me to follow. That's what I think.
All right.
No, I think metacognition is largely bad.
Bad?
Yes.
What do you mean? What do you mean by that?
I mean, I think it's healthy to do it once in a while, but ultimately, as animals, we're not supposed to engage in metacognition. That's why humans commit suicide and things like that, because we think too much.
So we should. Wow, that took a very dark turn.
That's an interesting take. I like it.
So yeah, no, I mean, I think thinking about why we think the way we do and things like that, like it's useful. I mean, I think in like therapy, like I think therapy can be useful and stuff, and like figuring out like why we get depressed and things like that. But I think if you're engaging in it all the time, it's largely negative. Or if you're engaging in it like very frequently, it's negative because it removes you from like the moment. And I think that as animals, we're supposed to be more reactive than we actually like going on sort of more basic drives. I think when we think like when we try to attribute things to like meaning to be on those basic drives or like living in the moment, that's what causes depression.
So I do have a question. So are you speaking from experience?
Of course.
Of course. But okay, what about so I think I do agree with you that if you're thinking too much, you get into your own way, kind of. So it kind of too much chatter in your brain. But what about you saying about being reactive? But isn't being reactive is also bad because you're being impulsive on the time, right? So if you go to a store, you say, okay, I want to eat sugar now. I just get a Coke or something like that. Isn't that bad too?
Yeah, I mean, of course that is bad, but I mean, I think that so I think there is a balance that's probably like sort of healthy, but I mean, I think yes. I mean, the answer is you should be balanced.
I see.
I mean, yeah, I speak from experience as someone who falls too far on the sort of thinking about my own thinking sort of
okay,
scale. So.
Yeah, I guess the thinking about thinking, that's what I'm talking about, is more like, because I have been like a lot of times I don't think about some of decisions I made, right, or some of the stuff that I do. I was just wondering, basically try to be more aware and mindful, because I feel like sometimes I make a decision, I don't really think about the decision. I wasn't even aware that I was making a maybe a potential big decision, or just did not really think about things through, right? I just do it and stuff like that. So I feel like, and then sometimes even some of the decisions, I feel like even though I talk about a decision, but I didn't really make a very good decision. So I was like, okay, how do I be more mindful? I guess the what I mean about thinking is more about being mindful of the thinking, and then how to think better, like to have a better, like clear thinking. That's what I'm talking. I think that's what I meant, right? So, yeah. Anyway, what's your thoughts, Matt?
I think everyone should do some introduction to philosophy, which is a great way to like learn how to think and structure your
Yeah.
thoughts and arguments, at least if it's a good philosophy class. And that's not exactly metacognition, right? Because usually you're not explicitly like discussing how you think, but they're presenting you a way of thinking essentially, about trying to be like logical and how you analyze things. And I think it's a very useful skill. That's my thoughts. That's what I think about when you discuss this. Also, like engineering and computer science and stuff also kind of ingrain similar thought patterns into you. But I think philosophy is a great non-technical way to do it.
Yeah. So all right. So cool. I would say let's leave Mike's interpretation of thinking about thinking for the future. I think that's a very big topic as well. Meditation is one way to do that as well. But anyway, so thinking about thinking is about like one way of doing like the solving way of thinking is to have a toolbox of like mental models. Right? Have you guys heard about those mental models before? Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've heard of mental models before.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. So basically, a lot of like people like Charlie Munger, Elon Musk, and all the other people always say, oh yeah, you should have a lot of different models, mental models. That way, when you encounter a decision, maybe you can pull some of these mental models out and then try to analyze the problem, try to come up with a good decision. So today, one of the mental model I want to talk about is something called first principle thinking. So I guess what do you guys know about? Have you know anything about first principle thinking?
Is it related to the like sort of the mathematical idea of like first principles, like deriving something from like a set of known assumptions and sort of building up?
Yes. Yeah. What about you, Mike?
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, you hear a lot of people talk about like any like discussion sometimes, oh, you need to think from first principles and stuff like that. And that's basically what it means. Like if you Google like first principle thinking, I think Elon Musk will usually come out a lot of people giving as an example, because in a way he actually like credit like first principle thinking basically to his like a lot of his like thing approach, the way that he approached our problems. Like one example he like to give is like the way he started like SpaceX, right? Because at the beginning when he started SpaceX, he was like, okay, he want to go send people to Mars, right? And then when he want to look around to buy a rocket like from like Russia or other like countries, and say, oh, a rocket actually cost like $65 million. So that was a lot of money, right? So he's like, oh yeah. So basically, it's almost like impossible in a way, right? It's so expensive, and then he basically, break the rocket down into its individual components and say, okay, this part, if I made this part from aluminum, copper, all the other stuff, when he did a calculation, he add this up, it's like, oh, you can do it like maybe in one build from just raw material is but basically just $1 million, right? And with the other stuff, you can probably do it in like $10 million, right? So then anyway, that's one example that people like to give. Is how Elon Musk is the first principle thinking to basically to solve a lot of like big problems, stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any thoughts?
It sounds like it can be a good way to, I guess, try to break away from like assumptions that like you or like other people already have about a problem, right? Because it's like rather than coming in like being like, this is what I know, like rockets are expensive, right? Or this is like the state of the industry, you just kind of sort of from first principles derive what you think is possible and say, okay, maybe this is opportunity that's been missed or overlooked for whatever reason.
Yeah, exactly. It's like sometimes I think we are not aware. It like could be like conventional wisdom or stuff that people tell you that you just sometimes you just took it as a like the truth, right? But until you like when you start questioning these assumptions and you start like dig deeper, you realize actually when you go to the fundamental truth, like physics, right? In physics, of course, the first principle and the law of physics, right? You can't go faster than the speed of light. So you break everything down into the fundamental thing that you know is the truth, right? And then from there, you build it up again to come up with maybe a different solution for the problem you try to solve. Yeah. So yeah, so basically, of course, and the first step, of course, if you're using this method, is basically to identify your assumptions and then question assumptions, and then be like a child, I guess, keep asking why, right? Just keep going, why this is true, why, it can be annoying, but that's one way of doing it. And first principle thinking is a good way of doing it, but of course sometimes it takes effort, right? Slow. So which, and in contrast to like thinking by analogy, right? Have you guys heard about that?
Maybe not explicitly in that term, but I think everyone's familiar with using analogies to like think about something.
Okay, like what?
Like, what was it when we had our UBI discussion? You were like, we should teach a man to fish, not, give him. If you give him a fish, it's fed for a day. You teach him how to fish, he's fed for life, right? Like an analogy.
Yeah.
For sports and war.
Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of time people, I think when they approach a problem, they thinking by analogies like, okay, using past experience, right? Instead of coming up with the solution like from using principle from the ground up, right? You basically see maybe there's another problem, similar problem is already been solved using a different one solution. You basically apply similar solution to your new problem, basically, right? It's faster, but sometimes you might come up with the best solution, basically. So it's faster, right? So anyway, so that's something. So I guess okay. So last question for you guys is there something that you guys want to do but not doing because you think it is too hard right now?
I mean, the only thing I can think of is sort of like start it's like I always say at some point I would want to start a company, but I don't want to dedicate the time it takes to do it yet.
Yeah, why? Yeah, so I guess the from first principle they would say, maybe start questioning why do you think it's gonna take too much time, right? It might not be. I'm not saying that it's not. It won't. That's not true. I'm just saying that maybe you can start questioning those assumptions. Is there assumption or is there truth, right? Is that really gonna take a lot of time, right?
Well, I mean, based on what I understand, the time it takes to you need to seek out resources that you don't have. You need to construct a product that's desirable. So I mean, it's like there's lots of pieces, I guess, that require attention. So I feel like it's probably true.
Probably true, but might not be true.
Maybe.
Anyways, yeah, you could use basically. I mean, anything that you are thinking or basically, just re-examine these using basically question those assumptions. Is that if you think it's true, then maybe it's true. But yeah, anyway, so cool. So yeah, go ahead. I think let's go on to the next topic. You have another one called energy.
ITER. So I only found out about this recently, and I thought it was really interesting. So have y'all ever heard about ITER in France? It's a fusion plant, right? And I saw something because they're like, we're 78% done. But this is like the biggest and most advanced fusion plant that's ever been built. And it's supposed to do two things. It's going to actually generate more power than it consumes. And it's going to sustain fusion for long durations, right? Because there's been smaller ones that have done some fusion, but it's always negative in energy and typically short-lived. So this is like a like massive facility where they have huge I mean, they basically have like a factory for generating like cryogenic fuel for the reactor itself, and like all this other stuff. And they say the reactor is the most advanced machine humans have ever built. Is what they claim when I started watching some stuff on it. But it's pretty exciting. So this won't be like a viable commercial power plant, even though it'll generate some power, right? It's mostly still like a testing, but it's supposed to test like actual like close enough to industrial scale that like if it works, theoretically they could use the results from that as both like to learn a little bit more and to like as a demonstration to say, okay, let's go build now a fusion plant for actual power.
So is this a startup?
No, this is a big multinational effort. So like a bunch of countries have invested in it, including the US. I don't know how much money everyone does.
So even
did,
this,
but
you say this one, how much power are you gonna generate?
ooh, I don't know. I would have to look it up. It's not going to be like a super well, on one hand, it's going to generate a lot of power, but it also consumes a lot of power because fusion reactors generally basically use magnets to create like electromagnets to create like a super dense like compact field. So they take an enormous amount of power to run. So by virtue of them saying they're going to generate more power than they put into it, it's going to create a lot of power, but I don't know what their expected net like output is going to be.
Well, so what's the basic principle of fusion?
Create a mini sun.
Is it, what
So,
does fusion mean? Do they fuse the atoms together?
Yeah, so the sun, because of the super heavy gravity in the sun, atoms will actually fuse together. Like hydrogens, atoms will fuse into helium, and in that process, they release a lot of energy. So like that's what makes stars run. So fusion reactors are trying to do that same thing. So it's kind of like the opposite of fission, which is what most nuclear power plants are, where atoms break apart, have like, nuclei get ejected or something else, or neutrons get ejected or something else. But yeah, but the thing is, that normally takes like an enormous amount of pressure. So they use these giant electromagnets. They super cool with like liquid nitrogen or something. I don't know if that's what they use, but they super cool these giant electromagnets and try to create this field of like plasma that they like compress super tightly with the magnets. And then, if they get this hot, extremely compressed, plasma together, then fusion can start happening.
And did you say they try to fuse hydrogen atoms together?
That was an example. I do not know what they're going to try to fuse together. I wouldn't be surprised if it was hydrogen. Do they mention it?
Gotcha.
I don't know.
It's probably going to be a light element.
Yeah.
I know a lot of startups try to do instead of electric vehicle, they try to use the hydrogen as a fuel, right? So.
Yeah, it's supposed to have gaseous hydrogen, blah, blah, blah.
That's cool.
Looks like it is hydrogen at a glance. I didn't look into a lot of the details. Like I knew the basic concept of fusion, but I wasn't looking at the technical details. I was more interested in like the large scale, like, oh, they're going to be trying to build like a plant that actually produces power through fusion.
I mean, hear, go ahead.
On the flip side, it feels like nuclear plants are already could be all the power we need, right? And we can't get those, are too expensive to build mostly, it seems like, right? And a fusion power plant's like a nuclear plant scaled up, like it's just going to be more large, more expensive, more complex. But it doesn't have this. Yeah, it doesn't have the same safety issues. There's no radiate, like it doesn't have like, I don't think it will create radioactive fuel or anything like that. So there are some advantages, and it's the sort of thing where if you stopped running it, it would just shut down. It may, even if it got damaged, I don't think it could cause a natural disaster, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're not sustaining the fusion reactor with an enormous amount of power, it's just going to stop.
Okay. Got you. And there's nothing like nuclear waste, similar stuff like that.
Right. The fused, if they're fusing hydrogen, I don't think the fused elements would get close to something big enough to be radioactive.
Yeah.
Those are usually heavier elements.
Yeah. I guess the main thing, the main advantage, it doesn't have no like negative public connotation to it, right? So.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think when I Googled it, actually, I heard like Jeff Bezos also like invested like a few $100 million into one of startups doing like fusion as well. So
Interesting.
could be in the
I mean,
future.
fusion is such a large scale thing. I'd be very skeptical of a startup, like a big multinational project. It's like, okay, that I could see that succeeding. Like an individual startup, that seems tough, but
I mean,
maybe the startup has a clever idea about how they can,
yeah.
reduce the problem somehow, but
it's Jeff Bezos, right? He has a network of a country probably.
yeah, I mean, that is true, but I guess it depends how much he's investing into it.
Yeah.
But anyway, Mike's looking bored. He doesn't care about fusion power.
No. I was just reading over my notes because I like put together a lot of notes last night. So
all right. Before you go there, I guess I want to, since you're talking about healing, I want to go. Do I need to worry about Delta variant at all? Have you guys paid attention to the variant? Since you guys are vaccinated, you probably don't care.
No.
Mostly the latter. It's supposed to be more contagious but less dangerous, right? Which is how most viruses progress.
Right. And from what I understand, if it's the vaccine is doing pretty well against it, so it's mostly people who are unvaccinated who are.
Yeah, I guess I just more worry about like people around me who are not vaccinated. If I go and get into contact, I may get infected, and then I mean I know I'd be fine, right? Because I'm vaccinated already. But I'm mostly worried about like people around me who are not vaccinated.
I just don't hang around with people like that many. Like I can't think of anyone I hang around with regularly who isn't. So
I gotcha.
Such an elitist.
No, I mean, but yeah, no, it's. I mean, it is. It's worth. I mean, it's more worth like just like the fact that additional variants keep emerging. That's more the concern. Because in theory, I guess there could be like a variant that's like bad.
Yeah.
But hopefully it'll just die out. But...
Okay. Hopefully we can get our body to heal ourselves. That way we can,
Like I think at this point, COVID's probably going to be more like the flu, right? Like something that continues to go around. Hopefully it gets a little less deadly over time. But yeah,
that's not how viruses work, right?
Well, viruses don't really get an advantage from killing the people they infect, right? So I think there is a trend. I mean, it's not like a rule, but I think there's a trend that most viruses actually become less deadly over time if they are deadly.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just because it's adaptive pressure to be contagious, not kill the host.
Okay, that makes sense. If they want to survive, they want to keep the humans alive as well.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Was there anything else on energy? I didn't mean to derail that. I was just like, I didn't look into it that much. So I was just like, I don't know what to say. So I'll review my notes.
I mean, the exciting stuff is still going to be a few years away when they finish it and run it, right? I don't think there's anything that crazy. I just never even heard of it, like period. And I saw when I did start looking into stuff on it, some people were like, yeah, people like no one has heard about this outside of like the science community that's involved with it. And I'm like, well, that's weird. Maybe they're just waiting to get the hype up, when it's actually close, like about to finish. But
right.
I mean, if it works, it's going to be a very exciting, very cool project. And they are the majority of the way through it. So we just have to be patient.
What about climate change? Is it? I'm assuming it's very, very good for the climate as well.
Well, I mean, it's another source of zero carbon energy potentially. But again, I mean, we already have good working nuclear plants that do that anyway. So I'm just kind of like, it's not bad. It's cool, but it's like for climate change purposes, I imagine it'd be a little slow. By the time this finishes, tested, and then you can build new ones, and these are massive things. Like that's going to be 15 years at least, right? I think we might need to do something up for energy production before then. But, in the long term, maybe it will become a good source.
Right. No, yeah. I mean, I think as she was saying, like it's positive maybe in this, like it comes down to marketing, I think, again, like where, like, can they sell it to the public as like, this is, safe and, like an alternative to, because I mean, nuclear plants. The expense and the, I guess, negative press have derailed what could have been like a pretty important solution. So yeah.
All right. That's all right.
Yeah,
Now
Google
teach.
ITER, ITER, if you want to know more. That's
Okay.
it. Okay.
All right. Now teach us how to heal ourselves, Mike.
All right. Well, I mean the first thing I want to do is basically, and you could just ignore what I wrote below it, but I wanted to ask you guys like what you like. So when you need to heal, like what does it mean? Like what do you need to heal from? So like
negative
what,
energy that the world puts out. No. I mean, for me, I'm not like a super physical guy, but it's probably when I do something like working out or some sport or something, and I get like a minor injury, bruise, pull. Those are the sort of things the only things I really have in my day-to-day life.
Well, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, to me, when I think about healing, I just think about Wolverine, right? X-Men. When you get cut, get shot in the head, you heal yourself. That's really ultimately what I want to be, right? So that's what I think about when I think about healing.
I'm gonna just take over for a little bit. Well, not really take over. I'm just gonna say, when you're trying to build muscle or work out to do anything, right? It's all about you literally break your body and then it gets rebuilt, healed, better, stronger, right? Like that's how the process works. So if you can improve healing, you can theoretically improve training a lot. So now I'm interested.
Okay.
Well, I mean, isn't aging also basically just a damaging process? And then if you can heal your new healing is about a regeneration kind of way, right? So if you can do better, heal faster, regenerate more cells, then maybe you will slow down aging.
All right. Well, before we get ahead, so so I'm going to make the claim that essentially what requires you to heal is anything that requires a fluctuation from some healthy baseline. So like you were talking about, like any type of injury, whether that be simple or severe, like a cold or a disease. I mean, even like, your body has to heal, like say you don't, like you eat a lot of sugar or something. Like, like the nutritional, like you can get dehydrated and need to heal. And you could make poor nutritional decisions and need to
get dehydrated, like when you get drunk.
Yes. I have under there drinking alcohol, which is literally like poisoning your body. So, your liver literally needs to your livers and kidneys work to like filter different things, even when you're on medications, like they need to like work to extract those and your body needs to excrete them. So, all of those, like all of these are sort of like examples of healing, which is basically returning your body to some healthy baseline where essentially it's like you're not feeling negative. Like when you're feeling like, I feel like when you're in a healthy and like good state, your body is almost like you're not paying attention to your body. That's basically it. So, okay. So, basically I did not look a whole lot into sort of the mechanisms by which healing sort of like the well-known mechanisms by which healing takes place. Like, I guess if you get like an injury, like a cut or something, there's platelets that like essentially clot the cut. Red blood cells work to like put tissue in place to like help cover over the cut, like, and make a scab. And ultimately, like, the scab will fall off and, the different cells in your body will come in and create new tissue. Similar to like what Matt was talking about with like building muscle. Like you injure yourself, like the cells that play those roles like will come in, do their job, and heal the muscle and potentially make more muscle tissue. So I guess in a healthy body, so a body capable of healing, I was like, in a way that's uninteresting to me, because it's sort of like following algorithms that like people who study physiology and medicine like have pretty well defined at this point. So I guess
define healing.
Yes.
Oh, you mean like mechanism of healing?
Correct. Yes.
Oh,
So
okay.
I mean, I put a link basically looking at like, I guess it takes you through like the 3 to 5 week process that occurs. Like if you get like a cut that's bleeding, and it talks so I put a link on like the document like from just like Healthline, one of like or WebMD or one of those types of websites where basically it's like the cut clots, these are the cells involved in making new tissue, these are the cells involved in ensuring it doesn't get infected, and on and on and on. So
So you're not interested in the fundamental truth of how body heals. So what are you interested in?
So, well, I guess I mean, I won't say I'm not interested in it, but I feel like for the purposes of the podcast, I was like, this isn't interesting. If I talk about if I just read an article on like how blood cells heal.
Yeah.
I guess I was more interested in like what does our ability to heal sort of depend on, and what changes. Because so as we age, our ability to heal changes. So I guess one, what does our ability to heal depend on? That's something I can ask you to, like, what when you think about like okay, I need to get over this cold or I need to get over this injury, like what do you do to make that happen?
That's a very you remind me of a story of Benjamin Franklin, actually. Anyway, yeah, he's the one that talk about, you need to, back in the day, you need to open a window, right? A lot of people like shutting their windows closed. Now, even I think, and one day he was sleeping with John Adam in the same bedroom. Yeah.
So that's something we had to get into on another podcast.
So John Adam had a cold, right? And then Benjamin Franklin quickly jump out of the bed and then open the windows. So because he has a theory of cold is that is no air. You need fresh air to come in, so you can because I guess the stale air in the room is carrying the virus as well, right? So anyway, so he opened a window, and then that's how he basically did not get a cold from John Adam, even though they were sleeping in the same bed.
Okay. So, all right, Matt, do you have anything to add to that?
So you asked what you do or what I do if I like get sick or get injured or something.
Correct. Yes.
I mean, pretty much the only thing I do is try to rest a little bit, right? Proportional to how bad it is. Like, if something's hurt, I don't go exercise with it. If I'm sick, I'm not going to go run or something, right? But I don't really do much besides increase rest a little bit.
Yeah. To me, I think sleep is the best medicine.
No, I mean, that's true. So basically, I mean, I sort of thought of it as 3 different things, like, and I think you referred to at the very least like 2 of them, but sort of all 3 of them, maybe less explicitly, is basically it's your body's sort of your body has the resources to allow you to heal. 2, your environment is conducive to healing. And 3 is like the extent to which like you are injured or need to heal. So like those 3 things, like I guess to sort of I thought of as like determining your ability to heal. So if like, I mean, you're young.
What's the last one?
Like, so the last one is the severity of like the illness, injury, whatever.
Oh, okay.
So I mean, like, obviously if you're young and you're dealing with like you're hit by a car, I mean, that can produce an injury that like you cannot heal from.
Yeah.
But if you're whereas like, if you have like a cut and you're young, like it'll, I mean, your body repairs it in like a day or whatever. And so and I guess so your environment like is also important, sort of as you go into with the Benjamin Franklin story. So essentially, I mean, if you're dealing with like, say you have like the flu and you I mean, modern day, you have the flu, you're able to sleep in like a house where your body temperature can be like, the external temperature can be like really well regulated, so your body doesn't have to work to regulate itself. like, and you're able to sleep like on a nice mattress and just like eat lots of food to give your body like the nutrients it needs to fight the infection, like all of that is conducive to healing. Whereas okay, yeah, 1727 and you're in Benjamin Franklin's time and it's winter and you have pneumonia, like your body, like you may not be able to recover because you're like, it may be freezing in your apartment,
the environment is important one.
In your cabin.
Yes, in your log cabin, you may be freezing, and your body may, like, you may not have the resources to like regulate temperature.
Okay.
So I would say those three things are sort of important to healing. So I mean, environments like in today's day and age, like given as we've talked about on previous podcasts, like we live in a relatively well-to-do country where a lot of people are housed and can afford like they can afford reasonable nutrition. So I mean, I would contend that, I mean, at least, and obviously, like, like you don't necessarily have like a super, like you don't have the control over like the severity, I guess, of the injury, right? So like, or the severity of the condition. Like, I mean, if you're hit by, like, if you're shot or hit by a car, or I mean, like all of those types of things are a little bit out of our control. So like you can get a serious injury at any point, but I would contend that less serious insults. So I mean, we talked about like, I mean, just like day to day, you're, like insulting your body in some way, right? Like even if you like just going for a walk is like forcing your muscles to activate in ways that like, can damage them. And we're exposed to like sort of like germs, like, viruses, bacteria, like that may do some damage to our body like every single day. So, so I mean, basically it like through like in day-to-day life, your body needs to be able to like respond to even the most basic of insults. So I guess what I thought of is like sort of interesting, or sort of the piece of like what makes you able to heal that I thought is interesting and what changes over time is your like sort of your body's ability to respond to those insults, like outside of just like environmental factors and sort of the like the insults themselves. I was like, so what changes in our body, or what evidence is there that our body like is less able to, like, because I mean everyone sort of talks about aging over, like everyone talks about like, oh, aging's hard because like you're sore, like you're always sore, like even even just doing basic things, like you get like arthritis and your body's unable to sort of like, I guess, respond to those types of insults as it would when you were younger.
Yeah. So you mentioned you found something interesting. What's the interesting? What is the interesting you found?
Right. So, well, I guess so. A paper that so what inspired this idea last week is there's a paper that came out that essentially says because of our body, like our body's lack of like our, I guess, lack of ability to respond to these like basic insults, like so like the day-to-day life,
the daily grind.
Yeah, the daily grind, exactly. So they make the claim that sort of a maximum age, if we are sort of age as we currently do, a sort of maximum age that we can live to is between 120 and 150. So that is so that is the paper that like
I still have 100 years to go.
Yes, exactly. So I mean, so I mean, and yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Matt. Yeah.
Oh no, I didn't.
I think he was just laughing.
Yes. So I mean, well, I read another paper. So I guess I was going to end on this, but there's an optimistic paper that says more and more people will live to be over 110 during like this century. Like if you examine like the trend, like more and more people will, get to super like whatever 100 is, centurion or whatever. So, but in any case, yes. So, but to start with, like, so when of course you read the headline, you're like, oh, the oldest people can live if they age as they currently do is 120 to 150. And I'm like what evidence, I guess, is there? Like, I guess it's interesting to me, like, how can you make that claim?
Right.
So,
Okay.
basically, so I looked into the paper, and
Well, what
basically,
do you just read the paper in random, or did you just like?
no, I mean,
No, well, why did you read the paper in the first place? I'm curious.
what do you mean? Because I saw the
I mean,
headline and I was like, that's.
oh, you saw the headline like it's on news something.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
okay, okay,
this
okay.
is, this is a pretty recent paper, I think.
Oh,
So
oh, so you read a headline and then you delve deeper and then you find a research paper.
exactly,
Oh,
yeah.
gotcha,
So
gotcha.
I mean, this paper. Let's see here. So this paper came out in, I think, May of 2021.
Hmm.
So I think it's like a very recent paper.
Okay.
But so longitudinal analysis of blood markers reveals progressive loss of resilience and predicts human lifespan limit. So that is the name of the paper.
Gotcha.
And yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, so basically, even if we cured all diseases, by 150, our body would just break down unless we somehow reverse aging effects.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess that is in a sense sort of what they're getting at. Yeah, is even some of the most like basic of sort of injuries is like would have ultimately caused us to break down and die, even if we didn't necessarily have something like acute that like or not something that we would think of as like I mean everyone like cause of death that like heart attack, heart disease, like cancer, like those types of things we always think about, but like those are I guess acute causes for. Or like I guess the acute reason for things like our body not functioning well for a much longer time.
So then that's why you were talking about walking around, these daily grind is damaging to your body, is because eventually it's going to cause even these tiny, small damages going to cause your body to break down.
They all add up.
So
yes.
So we are literally dying as we are living. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. As I said, this was not going to be an uplifting episode. So, but yeah. So, looking into this paper. So, I guess I mean, sort of one of the questions that I thought about was, I sort of thought like, is aging always bad? Like to myself, that's one thought I had going into this paper, and they're very quick to say like, no, like obviously like. So, I mean, at the beginning of our lives, obviously, like from 0 to, I mean, I don't know, 30 or something. Like, yeah, I mean, really, like, there's a decent chunk of our lives where we're essentially maturing, right? Like, certainly 0 to at least our 20s. I mean, our brain is still like growing. Yeah. So, I mean, and I think that makes sense. Like, it makes sense that we can't come out as full humans because, like, I mean, I think it does help like to grow up in a certain place because it gives your body like the opportunity to like evolve, like I guess evolve and like or fit your environment. So
Maybe
I mean,
adapt would be the right word here.
Yes, that's
especially
adapt,
especially for men. I heard that man's brain is not fully developed until like 30 or 35. So
I heard men's brains never fully develop.
Yes,
that's
better.
Just what my wife said.
Oh,
that's okay. who say that?
No, I was just kidding. She never said that.
Oh, okay.
So, yes. So, yeah. So, I mean, maturation and growth is necessary to adapt. Yeah, that's the word I couldn't think of to your environment. But so, I guess big idea of the paper is aging isn't bad to sort of that point of maturation, but aging, like they sort of say, aging post 40 is basically bad because like you don't bounce back as well from like those deviations in your healthy baseline. So that's sort of their thesis.
It's not thesis. I feel it already, so it's truth.
Yes, well, maybe it starts at 35, but yeah.
All right. I got a question that you
Mhm.
may have not read anything about, but
Mhm.
I know I've seen occasionally like these like exceptional cases of like, oh, like the 70-year-old who runs triathlons, right?
Mhm.
Is that, I don't know, just in general, like what do you think about that? And then secondarily, do you think that's more like they're anomalous, or do you think like consistent exercise can make like that big of a difference in terms of how you age or how your body handles aging?
No, I mean, I definitely. So, I mean, are they anomalies? Yes. But I mean, I do think that, like, I mean, there's certainly things when it comes to like smoking. Yeah, like, do you smoke? Like how you eat? And I mean, those have definitely been tied to like some of the markers of aging that I'll talk about in a little bit. And I would imagine that. I would imagine that basically if you were to look at like like say like the person at 70 who it's like they were in really bad shape at 50 or something, and they like spent the last 20 years like getting in really good shape, like I would imagine that you would see, like if you looked at sort of the trend of like some of the markers like telomere length or things like that, like maybe you would see like the trend like pre 50, like it may have been like the length of like yeah, I mean, telomeres are like sort of the end of DNA strands that are protect DNA essentially. And like, like they get shorter over the course of your life, and they are one of the things that are theorized to be like very intimately tied to aging. So like, they may have been getting like shorter, faster pre 50, and when the person like made like a very conscious effort to like shift to a more healthy lifestyle, that rate of shortening may have like slowed down. I mean, it's never going. I guess the key point is it's not going to stop it. But I mean, there's things like, does the person smoke? Like, does the person eat healthy? Like those types of things that are tied to like slower shortening of telomeres, like, and other like markers of aging. So
Okay.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah. Have you guys heard the guy called Arthur Devaney, I think.
I don't think so.
He's a professor of economics at University of California, Irvine. He's famous for his like very cut physics, even when he was like 75, I think. It's like really cut. So yeah.
Uh,
Oh yeah. Well,
Anyway.
yeah, no, I mean, there's always like, the video of like the 90-year-old deadlifting like, 200 pounds or something.
Oh wow, what?
Yeah, I think I feel like I think I was still at Tech, but like I think Matt sent me a video of like this guy like deadlifting more than I was to make fun of me, and I was
and he wasn't just like old; he like looked geriatric, right?
Oh,
Like
that's
he
right.
like
Yeah.
hobbled up, like his back's really arched, like totally white hair. Like he looks like he could be in a nursing home. And then he like throws up a couple 100 pounds on the bar, and it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah. So I mean, so yes, these are anomalies, but I do think that it does, like, it helps, but it's not like, I guess there's a difference between like helps and like a cure. So it's not like a cure for aging, but it like slows down aging, right? It's sort of like like a treatment for some like chronic condition. It's like it's going to help with the symptoms, but not cure the condition if aging is a condition.
So which crystal do I have to buy to actually cure it?
I don't know. I'll leave that to the mystics out there. So, but I mean, so in any case, so to get back, I guess, how does this paper like sort of make the claim that age, like our maximum lifespan is between 120 and 150? So basically they use so complete blood counts.
Okay.
So do you know what, I assume both of you have had like a complete count blood test at some point in your life?
Not really. What do you mean?
I think so. I mean, so blood count, like counting the different cells in your blood, and then
essentially, yes. I mean, so
just means it's counting everything.
Yeah, so it's, I mean, well, yeah, so I mean, it's a pretty common blood test if you get like a yearly physical. I mean, they won't do it all the time if you're not complaining about something, but like they'll do it to check for like anemia and like, I mean, if so, yeah, it's
Do
a
y'all
count.
actually get yearly physicals?
I don't.
I usually, I mean, there were a couple of years at Tech I didn't, but I normally do. So
this is a sidetrack, but I remember me and Kit had this discussion once because I was like, I didn't think anyone did that. And she's like, I always get a yearly physical. And I'm like, okay, I
Yeah.
guess. Like, I'm not
In
sick, so I'm not going to go to the doctor.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I think most Americans do, but you are maybe
Do
you are
you?
just
Really?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think because it's covered by healthcare, right? If you have any time insurance, it's free anyway. Why don't you go do it?
All right, whatever. Side
Like,
issue.
like Benjamin Franklin say, an ounce of prevention is worth an ounce of cure, right? So a pound of cure. I'm sorry.
that yes, so that is true. So the complete blood count is essentially like sort of that. Well, I mean, I guess it's not prevention, but it's like it's a good early indicator that something may be wrong. Like your white blood cell count being like low or high I mean, high indicates infection, like low can indicate some type of like, the beginnings of like cancer, like help you catch like a cancer early or something like that.
So what's the normal blood count?
Well, I mean, there's standard ranges for each thing. So they look at like red blood cell, white blood cell. Like, I mean, I don't know how recently you got some type of blood work, but like for almost every blood test on Earth, there's like, oh, here's your standard range. And it's like, do you fall above, below, or in between?
Okay.
Like, standard range. So
as you get older, I'm assuming your blood count getting like, is it a ratio between black, I mean red and white, or is it they both get?
Yeah,
reds?
no, they both have a standard range.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So they basically getting less as you get older, basically. The volume.
No. So not necessarily. So basically, you have this CBC, which tells you like this is how many red blood cells, like this is how many red blood cells you have per milliliter or whatever. This is how many white blood cells. This is how many platelets. This is the iron, et cetera, et cetera. So
Gotcha.
basically, I mean, this is a very standard blood test, tons and tons of data.
Okay.
And basically, this blood test is like it could be considered like a measure of overall health, like I say, because it's used as sort of a first thing to identify a lot that can go wrong with you.
Okay.
So basically, they
why are you not in your head, man?
Because Mike's been circling this point for like a few minutes now. I'm trying to get him to go. Stop distracting him, Shu.
No, for me it was like, because I don't know anything about biology, so it's like, okay, this is all new information to me.
Okay.
So basically the paper started by using your normal PCA on these CBC variables, right?
Okay.
So dimensionality reduction.
Principal component analysis is what PCA means for the viewers.
Yes. And basically they projected this down to just a couple of dimensions. And it very clearly, like when they plotted it, like from age 0 to like age 35, there was like a linear increase.
In what?
So when they did the principal component analysis, basically the top dimensions from that, they essentially, when you do PCA, you project to lower dimensional space.
Yeah, I understand that. I'm saying that what increasing what? You say increasing something, but I just...
So increasing a lot. So like if you look at if you plot like the top like 2 or 3 dimensions from the PCA,
okay,
like you see increase along those dimensions with age.
Oh, I see. You're saying the correlation between the first and second dimension with your aging increase, the correlation increase a lot, right?
Sure. Yes, there's a line moving in the positive of both, like dimension 1 and 2, as you age from like 0 to 30, right?
Okay.
And then there from like 40 to 60, like it flattens off. So essentially, if you think about it, it's like, so in this like complete blood count, like the values you get what does that mean? Like the values you get are changing a lot, like from 0 to like there's a change in values from 0 to 30, and then a relative like stability of values from like 40 to 60. And then at the age of like around 60, those it starts to take off again, like the variance increases again.
So what on the first so there's many variables, right? When you do the analysis, there's only a couple of variables that are really important to like increase linearly with your aging. So what are those two variables on those two dimensions? What are those?
What do you mean?
You're saying there's a two dimension that
principal component analysis.
No. You found there's a two dimensions, right? But what are those dimensions?
I mean, they're linear, like, I mean, they're linear combinations of like all dimensions, right? Like that's how PCA works.
Yeah, maybe explain that briefly because most people aren't going to know, Mike.
Okay. Well, I thought sometimes the principal component analysis, when you have like, for example, like 10,000 variables, right? You identify the two most principal ones, right? Sometimes they do projection, but sometimes into a different dimension, but sometimes they identify the feature extractions, right? You find the two most important ones, right? The top three, right?
Well, yeah, feature extraction is usually about like finding features rather than determining which features. Like if you already have variables and you're looking for which ones are most significant, I don't think you'd call that feature extraction because you already have the features. You're just finding which ones are most important. Okay. So like with principal component analysis, yeah, it's like you have a bunch of data. How do I describe this? But Mike's like, yeah, it's like a linear combination of your variables, and you find if one linear combination, reflects most of the change or the most significant correlation within the data. I remember, did you take THAADs? Do you remember eigenfaces? This is going to be a super niche reference.
Yeah.
He did. There's this thing called eigenfaces where he took principal component analysis of pictures of faces. So the data is like the intensity of the pixel, right? It was just grayscale images, so like 0 to 255. Okay, so like but it's a matrix because it's an image, so you have hundreds or thousands of variables, which is the intensity of each pixel. The first component when you do PCA on these is an image. It's an entire image, and I think one of the main things it found was, and what it shows you is not like an image of a person, but like the most significant parts that changed. So like one of the most significant things I think was actually facial hair because of the difference between men and women. So like you had this thing where beards was really
salient,
strong. So like the principal components had those like real bright, which meant they were very impactful as one of the main differentiators. Features, so anyway, so it created an image that was the first principal component, which is itself a combination of all the variables of interest.
Yeah. So I guess my question is like when you just say eigenfaces, you say, oh, the beards are the most like one of the most salient features. I guess my question for mine was like, what is the most salient features that once you do the analysis, what's the beard equivalent of in the blood analysis?
Right? I mean, I honestly don't know. I mean, it could just, because it could be like essentially what you're asking is what like. I guess what is the weight on each of like the red blood cell count, the white blood cell count, platelet. Yeah.
I thought maybe the most important thing is the red blood cell count or white blood cell count, something like that. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. To be honest, I don't know. Yeah. I mean, so basically, it just it didn't go necessarily in depth to the PCA, like like what were the eigenvalues and that type of stuff. So it just showed this very nice graph that, like I say, had change for like, very clear change from like 0 to 30, stability from 30 to 60, and then, like 60 plus is change again. So, and basically what they say there is you have sort of like early age, like the developmental part of life. You have sort of middle age where things are stable. And then you have sort of older age, like, or an aging portion of life. Okay. So they decided to basically, so I mean, I guess a lot of when like that sort of grow and then stabilize, so like a log linear or like a sort of a logarithm type look to graphs is, I guess, is something when you look at animals, like how animals grow. Like they cited a paper that basically showed like almost universally, like a lot of animals follow sort of that logarithm type look, where basically like early in life there's sort of rapid growth and then it levels off in adulthood, and there's sort of a stable state like when it comes to like body mass.
Okay, yeah.
So the dynamics of sort of the complete blood count sort of follow that logarithm look, like right up until like some point in middle age, like right. So they follow that sort of that logarithm look, and then subsequent to that is where it sort of destabilizes, is what they say. So what they did is they essentially fit, and again, I do not want to get into the math and like the actual model, but like they essentially fit some type of like predictive model that they referred to as a hazard model to data. Essentially, it was a risk model, like your risk to die. They fit to the CBC variables, to like mortality and morbidity.
Yeah.
For ages 40 plus.
Okay.
So after fitting that model, that model essentially took as input the like the variables of the blood test, and its output was a single number, and that single number was associated with your risk to die, essentially. So, and they referred to that as DOSI, which was,
I see. So they have maybe 150 years old is 100% you're gonna die. The risk is 100%.
I mean, essentially, yes. So I guess some of the key things that they looked at with this DOSI number was that basically, so DOSI was a measurement of like dynamics, like they claimed. So basically, like these blood counts, the dynamics of these blood counts were related to like the dynamics of your health. And basically they looked at, so DOSI increased, so from 40 to 80, like, it was a pretty linear increase again. And when they looked at individual patients' DOSI signals, so basically like how the DOSI value of individual patients changed over time, they used autocorrelation. So like, so say you had a signal like, okay, this is this person's like number, like this is their health number, and it's going up because the DOSI number is going up because they get a cold, right? So the like white blood cells went up, and the red blood cells went up to help fight the infection, and then they returned to sort of like their healthy baseline.
Okay.
And then they suffered some type of injury, so again white blood cells up, and so there's a sort of a cycle that occurs when sort of you deviate from the healthy baseline and then you return to the healthy baseline, but the healthy baseline is sort of what's there. So
go ahead.
So autocorrelation is basically, I'm going to take that signal of that patient and shift it, and like basically look at how well they correlate, like depending on how much I shift it. So if you're a reasonably healthy person and it takes you very little time to return to your healthy baseline, then basically the autocorrelation is going to be like most strong, like just with minimal shift. Because essentially it's like, okay, you deviate, you go back, and then like, your healthy baseline corresponds to like, this part right here. Like, so like the correlation is just going to be like very close because you're very rarely deviating from the healthy baseline, and it takes you no time to get back there. Whereas if you're less healthy, so like say like you're 80 and you break your hip and you're healthy, like, so, and it takes you 3 months.
It takes you longer. It just takes longer, right?
Right. So when you do the autocorrelation, that means that basically you're going to find that the autocorrelation is highest, like when the shift is more profound, like weeks or months. So when they grouped people by age and did this autocorrelation, essentially they found that the correlation was stronger in like 40 to 50 with like very short windows of time. But they found once you got up to like 70 or 80, the autocorrelation was stronger once you went to like months of time, like so much longer periods of time. So basically, then they were able to do like a regression to say like, okay, if we just sort of extend this, like the autocorrelation is like, once you get up to 120 to 100 is just like so long that it like essentially it's indicating your body won't recover. Like before, there's just more.
So that's how that's how they do the prediction, right? The model to predict like the risk. But I guess what does this have to do with healing though?
Well, so I mean, so I guess they're using the complete blood count as an indicator of when you're deviating from a healthy baseline, right?
Okay.
So I guess defined at the beginning, we sort of defined that a healthy deviation from a healthy baseline requires healing.
Okay.
So basically what they're saying is like they're examining with this autocorrelation how long it takes you to return to a healthy baseline.
Okay.
And what they're saying is as you age, so at age 40, it's like the amount of time to return to the healthy baseline is very minimal compared to the time it takes when you're like 70 to 80.
Okay. And that sounds like very common sense to a lot of people, right? Why do you need to write a paper about it, I guess?
Well, yes, but this is, I guess, like this is
quantify
looking at physiology. This is
actually
quantifying.
measure. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yes. So, and basically, I guess it sort of like if their metrics like are like I guess reasonable and are to be believed, then it provides you like a mathematical way to look forward, like how old could we live if this aging, were to continue, like if we age this way, then like how old could we live to?
Yeah. I mean, no, yeah, go ahead, Matt.
All right, Mike. So what I was going to ask is, are you going to start doing your yearly annuals again, collecting your CBC data, and do a DOSI model on yourself and see what how your regression compares to find your maximum lifespan?
Right. I don't know if I may just try to stop going to the doctor and just and until I can figure out how to prevent aging.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess I thought the main topic is going to be about how to prevent us from aging and healing, right? Healing faster, improve our healing. So did the paper say anything about that, or did you find any ways you can do that? Give me some useful stuff so I can use.
All right. Yes. So, I mean, so unfortunately, I think a lot of the helpful stuff at this point is sort of stuff we've already talked about, like not smoking, eating healthy, regular exercise, like the boring stuff that is valid. But I mean, this is like, so I guess.
Well, have you not heard about the rat study? How they.
The rat study. There's only been one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the rat study. So basically, they transfuse like young rat's blood into older rats. Like basically, transfuse younger rat's blood into the older rat blood, and the older rat became really energized, and I think became very much healthy and stuff like that. Right? Have you heard of that before? So I'm saying that one way to increase your health and then prevent aging is to get young people's blood and then put it in your body, basically.
All right, I have an alternative approach I've heard about that might be slightly more feasible. Have y'all heard about? There's like a name for it. It's like low-calorie dieting or something.
What do you mean? I mean, my proposal is pretty feasible too. You just get young people to donate blood and just put it in your body.
I mean, yeah. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it might be hard to get young people's blood in mass quantities, but there's at least some evidence. There's good evidence in animals that like fairly significant calorie restriction increases longevity, like a good bit.
Yeah.
You know, like you're not literally, obviously you don't starve yourself to death because that would be counterproductive, but like you go pretty low, right? So you end up fairly skinny. And I think the intuition would be you literally run your biological clock kind of slower, right? Your cells don't, I think your cells might literally not divide as fast and stuff when they're more stressed in terms of energy and whatnot. I don't know if that's accurate, but significant calorie restriction for long term. So you just live as skinny, but then you get to be, you know, maybe you get a couple decades of healthy living out of it. I don't know.
Yeah, that's why a lot of people recommend like fasting. Yeah, fasting is a good way to, you know, good for you as well.
So fasting, I do fasting's good, but I don't think it's exactly the same, right? Because you could eat like you could fast 1 day a week, but then still eat a lot on the other days, and you could get, say, you could work out a bunch and be big, right?
Okay.
So now for the fasting may have health benefits, but I don't think in this case, I don't think it would affect aging that much. What they're talking about is like the consistently having a restricted diet as a means to literally slow down your metabolism and thus the aging process.
Yeah. I mean, cell division, I think probably is a major piece of, I mean, literally, because, so, I mean, I guess one of the points a lot of papers sort of went to is aging is caused by epigenetic factors. So
before you go there, I want to go back to my blood thing.
Yeah.
So what about donating blood? I feel like a lot of people say, oh, donating blood is good for you, right? You go donate and then you actually blood regenerates, right? So does that actually help with your health, like improve your health or maybe aging as well? Like if you, donating blood, now you go,
I mean, I could see it, like, I could see your body becoming better at producing red. Like, I mean, in cycling and stuff or different sports, like a lot of people get caught like blood doping, which is basically where you inject red blood cells so you can carry more oxygen, so you can perform better in, the Tour de France, or for example. So basically,
so they probably read a rest study.
That's
maybe basically what it is.
Yeah. So I mean, I think they save their own blood to inject, maybe.
Gotcha.
But I mean, I guess I could see like donating blood. If you donate blood with some regularity, like your body may like get better or more efficient at producing red blood cells or something, and then So
I wonder if maybe that's why women live longer, because they they bleed every month. So maybe that's one way, right?
That is a novel idea. Yeah. I feel like I've heard a lot of things in my life, and I've never heard that before.
Oh, really? I heard of that before, and that's why I bring it up. So,
really? Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
maybe just my novel idea, and
the doctors who were doing bloodletting in like the 1700s were right all along.
Okay.
No, I mean, women tend to weigh less, eat healthier, and and live like generally they hit a lot of the healthier marks on a population level.
Gotcha.
In any case, so basically, I guess if we are to age better, so if we don't want this 120 to 150 to be a maximum, we need to age better. Yeah. So I guess that led me to ask I guess what causes aging? And I mean, there's sort of the very I guess philosophical why do we age or something like that. And I mean, there's lots of theories about it's just stuff going wrong. There's sort of the evolutionary theories that make pretty good sense to me, which is basically hey, it makes sense we age because it's we have offspring who can be who can, be better, survival of the fittest. And basically it makes sense for the old, less fit to die off, right? Because there's limited resources. So the new next generation is sort of how the species improves. And we've sort of served our purpose once we've had offspring. But so that's, I guess, sort of you can take or leave those theories, I guess. But I guess I was more curious in the physiological, why do we age? So a lot of papers talk about what are epigenetic factors. So basically the idea here is like, of course, if your DNA is damaged or changes, like we have genetic diseases and genetic conditions that show us like bad stuff happens when your DNA changes, like you were healthy and your DNA changes. But like epigenetic factors is changes in how your genes are expressed, like when your DNA doesn't change. So basically, I mean, again, it makes sense like that we need like some type of like when we're maturing, for example, like we need our cells to produce proteins differently than when we're like babies. And or like when we've sort of reached that sort of healthy like fully matured state at like 35 or whatever, like we need our cells to produce like proteins differently than when we're going through adolescence or something like that, like where we need our body to grow. So there's different, I guess, factors that come into play that cause our genes to express themselves differently depending on where we are in life. So I mean, so one of the ones that comes up a lot is called methylation. So, and methylation is, or DNA methylation, which I think may have been what Matt was sort of talking about when like either last week or a couple of weeks ago. I mean, so DNA methylation is essentially where there's a compound that binds to certain genes that can cause the genes to like either like a gene that is dominant or was active, and this binding will actually essentially turn it off. Or there are like demethylation, where it's like there are these there's this chemical compound that binds to a certain location in the DNA associated with a gene, and essentially this bind will break, and that will allow the gene to activate differently or more. And so this methylation process allows essentially like genes to be turned on, off, or expressed in slightly different ways. So this has been like a key point associated with aging, because like in older people, there's like a profound amount of evidence like that, like there's hypomethylation, like associated with like the occurrence of like cancers and things like that, which sort of makes sense. Like if genes are being expressed that weren't being expressed before, like and more proteins are being made, it sort of makes sense that cells may like develop like rapidly or something like that. So, but I guess I guess these epigenetic factors are sort of what would need to be treated to like prevent aging. Like we essentially just need to look at those and understand like once we reach that like health, like if we're a healthy 40-year-old, like how do we just like conserve how our cells are like allow our cells to keep functioning in the same way, as opposed to like
did you did you find out how?
Well, I mean, there are no solid leads, but that's not entirely true. So like so I brought up telomeres earlier. Like those are one of the things that keep coming up. So those are as I said, sort of repeated chemicals, chemical bases that like end a DNA strand. And the idea is that they prevent damage to the DNA strand, but they get shorter throughout life. Like almost essentially every single time every single time a cell reproduces, those are going to get shorter. And there are chemicals that are in certain cells that can actually help protect the telomeres or whatever, or like keep them long. But they're not in very many cells. Like it's like telomerase or something. I didn't spend a ton of time reading this because my expertise is not biology. It's like I want to learn more, but I didn't get to dive too deep into it. But essentially, like the idea is like if you can, I guess, keep these, telomeres as long as possible, or like the length, keep them from getting too short. Yeah, too short, whatever 2 is in this case. Then you can presumably help with the aging process. Because even there are studies that I was able to find showing like shorter telomeres lead to like hypomethylation and like so those types of things where it's where basically like genes are being activated and like inactivated in ways that they shouldn't be. So
Okay.
It sounds like this might be something that you have to prevent rather than reverse. Well, telomeres maybe like, because I think I've heard of people like successfully extending telomeres in like rats or something. But when it comes to like the epigenetic factors, right? Like if you imagine there's, you know, DNA is properly, it has the proper organization, methylization, whatever, to express the right genes in the right places. But like if that breaks down, right, it's kind of like a loss of information. Like how would your cell like rebuild or recreate the proper methylization of its DNA, right? Like where would that information come from? It's just, if it's scrambled just over time by random events, which would suggest that would be very difficult to like fix, right? You'd either have to like replace the cells with, fresh ones, or just you need to prevent that process from happening. Does that seem consistent?
No, I mean, I think that's true. So that's why I guess I was interested in like, I mean, maybe Shu's example of like a rat, like, actually like having young, healthy cells introduced and helping with like, a rat. So, I mean, potentially could we say like, oh, this is what like essentially a healthy cell would look like, a kidney cell in a person who's 10 years younger, and could we introduce some type of splicing to like repair the genes? And I mean, I guess it's possible. I mean, I don't know, I just don't know enough about cutting edge biology to say much more.
So how does exercise does exercise help aging, like slow it down at least? And then I guess, and then if it does, then how does exercise slow down aging? Because at least I think most people say, oh yeah, I mean, it seems very obvious from personal experience as well, right? If you just feel much better if you exercise, just feel younger, right? So I guess, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well,
exercise.
I mean, I think basically, I think a lot of these studies are pretty straightforward, and just in the sense that they like will look at a healthy lifestyle, like whether it be exercise or whether it be like food, nutrition, and basically they just correlate like those types of things with, I mean, at a very high level with things like, like mortality rate and things like that, and they show, okay, there's a correlation between healthy lifestyle and more.
But I guess my question is that how do you, at least from maybe based on what you're reading so far, do you have any inkling of how exercise helps maybe prevent the telomere become shorter or stuff like that? Do you know? And how does exercise work on helps you slow down aging?
I think that's a multi-billion-dollar question.
Okay.
Because I mean, I think at this point it's like, okay, exercise and good nutrition and all that they do help like telomere, and actually like interestingly, I know I saw an article about like if you sit like in a, like, what are those things where it's like you go like in the Mariana Trench or whatever, like you go way underwater, and that like a decompression tank, is that what it is? Like you come up to the surface, and like if you sit in like a decompression tank for like 3 hours a week or something, like they showed like an ability to like again, this is a small study, and I feel like
allegedly,
but I think they like showed like some increase in like telomere length or something. So
increase.
Yes. So there are all these different studies going on that are showing like, oh, if you do this, like it can help slow like telomere shortening, or it can increase the length, but I guess the mechanism, and of course there's like, there's still a question about like, does it just come down to telomere length when it comes to aging, or is this like issue with like methylation and like, genes being turned on and off, and or being or being expressed differently? Is that going to be happening regardless of that, or is telomere tied but not like 100% the reason for that, or is it just like, as the telomeres get shorter, more stuff starts to go wrong? I mean, if it's that simple, then there's lots of studies, I guess, looking at like not necessarily. I mean, I'm sure they're looking at the mechanisms as to what shortens them, but it's just more about like, well, what do we do? Is it just a question of we do whatever it takes to lengthen them, or do we, is there more going on? So I think it's very complex. So, so basically, I think so. I guess my answer to like how do we live longer than 120 to 150 is like better understand the mechanisms underlying these like epigenetic changes in gene expression, and trying to find solutions to prevent changes once we hit like a healthy adult age.
Yeah, just when you talk about epigenetic, it just sounds to me as something that we cannot really control, right? I guess that's the fundamental mechanism. So I guess my last question would be like, what can we do to? I think you mentioned the solutions, right? We are looking for the solutions. So, do you have any like maybe solution we can use right now?
Well, I mean, I think like I say, right now, I think it's just a lot of boring stuff. Like I say, eat healthy, exercise, but I mean, it's and I guess make sure like your nutrition is good. You have like the vitamins and minerals you need. But basically, I think anything beyond that is sort of just hypothetical at this point.
Gotcha. And go ahead, Matt.
I didn't have anything.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I guess so I was looking into I was thinking, so you because you were talking about you were going to talk about healing, so I was thinking, okay, what can I do to train my mind to heal my body, right? And then the quick Google search actually came out with something. So one thing is like be more optimistic, right? Because I think if you be optimistic, it kind of boosts your immunity, so you can heal better, right? So that's why I was surprised when you talk about this episode is going to be very depressing. So I was like, oh, this is not good. This is not going to be good for my healing.
Well, I mean, as I said earlier, there is I guess a positive. Like there was a recent article posted saying that more and more people will live to be 110 or more. So I mean, I guess we're like, and I think that's because like we are figuring out more and more ways to like provide like exceptional environments to help with healing.
Okay. Anyway, so then let me go through the 7 ways you can. So the first one can basically improve your healing. The first one is make your treatment more effective by expecting them to work. It's called a placebo effect, right? Believe that pill is going to work. And then sleep better by writing in a gratitude journal. Basically, be more grateful. And then live longer by focusing on your purpose. Anyway, so there's a study showing that it helps. The fourth one is be optimistic, which to boost your immunity. I talked about already. And the fifth one is slow aging with meditation. So meditation, the study showed that it actually might help. And the other one is build muscle. The sixth one is build muscle by imagining yourself working out. This is very fascinating to me. So you can So I think I heard of this one before, but this actually is kind of study show that you actually gain 24% more muscle strength if you actually imagine you're working out as well. Of course, you won't be gain as much if you actually work out, but actually it helps too. So anyway, imagining you're working out. And the last one is to reduce your risk of heart disease by laughing. So yes, comedy. So anyway, these are the practical solutions that you can use today.
All right. I believe all of them.
All right.
So is there anything else?
Yeah, actually, the last one I want to mention is you only talk about like living longer, right? So this is you focus on the lifespan, but there's something else called
health
health.
span.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
I feel like he didn't just talk about lifespan because I mean he
Mm.
explicitly talked about your ability to heal, which
Okay.
would I feel like would come be very strongly correlated to your health span, so to speak, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
True.
Because I mean, yeah, you could in the like even now. I mean, maybe they could get you to quote unquote, live longer if they just like kept you hooked to a respirator and like in a hospital and like
Yeah.
Like you can never move and they just like
Yeah.
inject the perfect nutrient slushy into your veins.
Yeah. So, but yes, I mean, the paper was really about like resiliency. So yes. So I mean, so I guess in theory you could live like technically be alive, have a heartbeat for longer than 150 years, but it's like your just ability to bounce back maybe
True.
zero beyond that point.
So Matt, when you were laughing when I say health span. So do you like health span?
No, I've just you've brought it up a handful of times. So it's
Oh,
like
really?
so every time you're like, look, this is about lifespan. I'm like, oh, here we go. She's gonna talk about health span again.
Interesting.
Sorry.
No.
Don't mean
Actually,
to be rude.
that remind me of there's a new form of medicine. It's called now you have medical doctors, right? Now there's a new form of doctor called a functional doctor, right? So instead of you the goal is like to like you have a disease, you go to medical doctor to get your back to normal, right? But there's another doctor is functional doctor, and actually like focus on your like how you functions in daily life, right? So they might do more prevention, right? Instead of just do a annual checkup. So anyway, there might be something worth to look into to just maybe go see a functional doctor or something. I don't know how the insurance covers it, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, well, I guess would therapy or something like that be considered like a functional doctor?
No, I think this is more like physical. Yeah.
Or a trainer?
No, it's actual doctor.
All right, here's my thoughts.
Mhm.
Doesn't the island of Okinawa in Japan have like the oldest people?
Mhm.
So sushi. I think you just got to eat more sushi. I think that's pretty much the key. I'll go get some after this for my health.
I'm sure it has
Yeah.
nothing to do with them sharing, like having similar DNA.
No.
Actually, sushi can be bad too because if you add too much fish, because the fish actually has a lot of mercury in them. So if you add too much sushi, you might get brain damage. So you be careful with that too. So
Damn pollution.
yeah.
Oh well.
So if you eat a lot of sushi, you maybe you should get your I think it's blood or your brain scan tested. So make sure that you don't get anything in your brain that is like maybe a lot of mercury in there, something like that. So if you have a lot of headaches, that might be good too. I might need to do one for myself when I have a good insurance. So
And you just need to find some place that serves nice factory farmed fish in a clean, sterile environment.
yeah. Anyway, so is that good for today?
Yeah.
All right, I think that's it. This was a long podcast.
No, that was reasonably long, but yes. So I guess what did we talk about today? We talked about energy, a new type of energy. We talked about like quotes I cannot remember from Benjamin Franklin, and
Mike shit on metacognition as a worthless idea.
I didn't say it was worthless. I said metacognition is good metacognition is good in moderation. That is what I said.
Don't try to gaslight us, Mike. We have the recording.
So Mike brought it up. Is very good. So we talk about first principle thinking is the first mental model that we talk about. In the future, of course, I could bring more different models. But to end, I guess I forgot to mention one of the quote from Richard Feynman, the second most famous physicist in the world, right? So anyway, so his
Newton?
quote. Yeah, go. What?
I would give the second most famous to Newton.
Oh, okay, and then that's pretty good, I guess. Yeah, you're right.
All right, we'll give him third.
Okay, yeah.
Maybe.
Okay, the third most. What?
I mean, I feel like you have your celebrity physicists, right?
Richard Feynman is one of the celebrities, I guess. Yeah.
Well, I mean, Neil deGrasse Tyson is more famous than him at this point, as well as Michio Kaku, probably.
Okay.
Is
I
Neil
had no
deGrasse
idea who
Tyson an
that is.
actual physicist? I don't know what like his background is.
Neil deGrasse Tyson?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a cosmophysicist, right? Yeah, he's an astrophysicist. So yeah.
Okay. Anyway,
Well, I
let's
cannot
let
believe
Shu
you just
talk.
say. I cannot believe you just say Neil deGrasse Tyson is not a physicist.
I didn't know what he like his actual because he talks about science stuff, but
Yeah.
like not everyone who does like is a not everyone who talks
no,
about
no,
physics
you mean
is a
you're talking about a
physicist.
science guy?
Yeah, Bill Nye's an engineer. There's people on YouTube who do like great content on physics that aren't
Yeah.
like physicists.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you could say they are, even if they don't have like an official degree, but that's a different
no.
topic.
Neil deGrasse Tyson definitely is a astrophysicist. I think he got a degree from either Yale or Harvard. I'm not sure, one of
I
those
think
schools.
Columbia, right?
Columbia. Okay, never mind. Yeah, Columbia.
All right.
All right.
Richard Feynman.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. The quote is, since we talk about first principle, so he said, quote, the first principle is that you must not fool yourself, and you are the easiest person to fool, end quote. Yeah, I think this is one of his most famous quote, I think. So yeah.
So with respect to first principle, that means nothing can be trusted, so there is nothing on which to build.
What?
Yep.
I mean, you said it related to first principle. I'm trying to figure out what you meant.
Oh, I guess he's just talking about the first principle about yourself, that you are the most, you must not fool yourself. And you are the easiest person to fool, I guess.
Right.
I don't know.
Right. So, well, okay. I was mostly joking, but yeah. So,
but I mean, what you say was pretty good. It is kind of thing. Like everything is almost like assumption, right? You assume, even the speed of light, right? We assume it's true, but is it really true, right? It's not true until I guess it's. Anyway, so yeah.
Do I really exist, or is everyone else in the world a figment of your imagination, Shu? You can't. I mean, how do you know? You're really just assuming.
True.
It's true.
True.
All right.
Was that assumption?
All right.
All right. Well, we're stretching here.
We're
so
off
I think
we're off the rails. Yeah.
We'll wrap up for this week. Do we know what we're going to do next week yet? I believe it's Shu's turn.
It's Shu's turn.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the business of robots, robotic businesses.
Okay.
Oh.
All right. Well, I'm going to say, just to wrap up, everyone get your yearly physical and get a blood test. So we can figure out how old we can live to. And
all right.
And figure out how to change epigenetic factors so I don't have to die. All right. So I'm taking us offline. So
life support, you mean?
Yeah. All right. Say goodbye to Rory, everyone, because we're no